Kisava, Tafshin Chaftes, 1969.
This particular sermon was given last year, though I did not tape it. And even last year, this sermon also is a copy of a sermon that I have given before. I do not know whether it has been taped before or not. Therefore, I had it taped as I was giving it this time. Okay.
My dear friends, this week we celebrate the holiday of Labor Day. A day set aside to honor labor, kochi ve'otzem yodi, my strength and the wisdom of my hand. My friends, it is also a time to honor the vision of one's mind and the greatness of one's will. And man indeed is in a sense a creator. Our sages explain when we say man created in the image of God, we do not mean really that he looks like God, but he is created in that image, meaning that just like God is the creator of the entire universe, man too is a little creator, for he can create whereby other animals cannot. He can envision from one to make a second, and from the second a third, or to discard where animals cannot. In other words, my friends, mankind is a miniature God, so to speak, on this earth, as God Almighty is the master God and creator of all. But it is also a time when our children begin their labor, the labor of learning. And I believe this is an important lesson to learn at this time when we officially begin the year of labor. A lesson for the breadwinner as well as a lesson for the student. And tonight indeed we are honored with a bar mitzvah. And let this be a lesson to the family and to our bar mitzvah as well. In the Talmud we are taught, Yogati umotzosi ta'amim. If one would say, I have sought, I looked, and therefore I have found, him you may believe. But one who achieves results by determination and by persistence should be believed, and conversely be dubious of one who speaks of succeeding without trying. There's an old Jewish expression, we pray every day, God will help, God will help. But until he will help, we can go crazy with hope. Do we not always say, God helps those who help themselves? My friends, throughout history, we know of many instances of men blessed with great firmness of will, who overcame their handicaps and left indelible imprints on all generations. Can you imagine the trials of Abraham to leave and suddenly go away into the desert and start preaching a new religion? Can you imagine the tears of Sarah, his wife, when she was barren and still followed her husband? Can we but imagine the aggravation of Isaac, who had two sons, and one of the sons was an Esau? Or the fear of Jacob, where everywhere he turned, the people looked at him, there goes the Hebrew. And he was afraid of his own brother, afraid of the people of Shechem, afraid when he lost a son named Joseph for 30 years. And yet they lived. Men, not situations, not philosophers, but men who lived and cried and ate and aggravated and smiled and laughed and who spoke with their wives. Men who lived through this aggravation to create a lesson for mankind. We recall Moses, who suffered a speech impediment. He was a stutterer, and yet appeared before Pharaoh and challenged both Egyptian and Hebrew. but saw his people freed. And if you think Moses went through without aggravation, you are only to read our Bible to see the failures that he had. From the moment that the Jews built a golden calf, to the moment Korah revolted and said, we want a new leader, to the time that they accused Moses of stealing from the temple, and to the time that they said, give us food, we would rather die in Egypt than to live in a desert. Indeed, he suffered, but he saw his people freed, and he died with God on his lips. We remember Jeremiah, who was imprisoned for his belief, but became a prophet of Israel. We recall the Rabbi Akiva, and I think all the young men and women in our congregation know the story of Rabbi Akiva, who was an ignorant shepherd and began studying the olive days when he was 40 years old. But with the courage of his wife prodding and pushing him, he lived to inspire us to this very day. From the age of 40, he first became a Rabbi Akiva. And for a moment, my friends, let us turn from the Bible and to others of the world. There was an Edward Gibbons who lived 200 years ago. He was in poor health. In fact, he was bedridden most of his life. And yet, in his poor health, he wrote that classic Roman history, The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. 20 years in bed and 20 years of writing. So many others can be cited, where sacrifice, where personal pain, where despair and privation did not diminish or prevent fulfillment of fame. You cripple a man, and you have a Sir Walter Scott. Bend him over, make him hunchbacked, and you have a Steinmetz. Inspire him, and imprison him, and you have a John Bunyan. And I recall just 2 weeks ago, on the Late Show, I think it was the 9 o'clock show, you'll excuse me, that I saw a show called The Birdman of Alcatraz. Whether you saw it or not, that show inspired me. What that man did. 53 years in solitary confinement, and he died in prison. Imprison him, and he gives lesson of learning and blessing to those who fly free. Ironic of God's ways. Bury one in snow at Valley Forge, and George Washington is the hero. Have him raised in object poverty, and Abraham Lincoln is the result. Load him with prejudice, and still you have a Benjamin Disraeli. Afflict him with asthma as a boy, and you still have Theodore Roosevelt. Stab him with rheumatic pain, and paralyze him with polio, and Franklin Delano Roosevelt still comes about. Give him a severe back injury, and you have the profile of courage of John F. Kennedy. Renoir, the famous painter and artist, had pain of arthritis every time he moved his fingers. And once when his student asked him, why do you stand here and paint when you have pain? He said, the pain passes, but the beauty endures. But my friends, certainly we learn that with persistence and perseverance, we can move ahead and we can become what our goal and our desires are. But our Torah teaches us another lesson besides perseverance. Certainly we know as a people, we as Jews are known as a people described in our Talmud as Kanemel. We are courageous as a leopard. The Jew didn't know how to say, I give up, or let's lay down. The Jew's famous word was, as the last line in Adon Olam, Adonai imi velo ira. If God is with me, I am not afraid. We are known to be a people of courage and even of laughter. Perhaps we had to go through our life with laughter. If we look at some of the Jewish expressions that unfortunately cannot be translated in English, there is sweetness and laughter and wisdom. Can we explain in English an expression as wird helfen wie auf der Teutenbankes? If you understand Jewish and heard that expression, in English I'll translate it. It'll help like on a dead man's suction cups. What does that mean? Or shame Sachen weiten Hals allein. Shame yourself in your far neck. Yet in Jewish there is a sweetness and indeed a wisdom to it. We were courageous. It is said that in the temple of old there was a sundial. That's the way they told time. And there in Hebrew, and I translate this in English, was a 2-line poem. And the poem read, "Others may talk of snow and showers. I only record the sunny hours." A sundial in the Beis HaMikdash in the temple. The Torah teaches us more than this perseverance. It teaches us exactly what should be the aim of life. There is a famous saying by Logan Purcell Smith, and he wrote, "There are 2 things to aim for in life: to get what you want, and after that, to enjoy it. And only the wisest of mankind achieves the second." I am recalling of a story of George Bernard Shaw, the famous playwright of England. He was once invited to a party of socialites. And as the party progressed in a few hours, the hostess came to him and said, "Mr. Shaw, are you enjoying yourself?" He said, "Yes, I am, and that's all I am enjoying." At least he was able to achieve this second, enjoying himself. So many of us, my friends, unfortunately, lack the determination to think through our problems and see good instead of darkness. How many of us have the wisdom to enjoy the fruits of our labors or victories? You know, when it's sunset and I look up to the sky, the only time I've ever seen a true, beautiful sunset is only when there's some clouds up there. If not, my eyes burn out, and indeed there's no beauty. Only with a little cloud can we then see the sunset of life, the beauty behind it. There are so many things in life we agonize over, and we struggle with, and we suffer through. But nobody can take away joy from a home that makes joy part of its business. If you say to yourself over dinner, "I will smile tonight," if you say to yourself, "I cannot bring my problems home," "I don't want my children to see the aggravation I had at the office," "I don't want my wife to realize my stock went down 10 points today," God forbid it should ever happen. "I don't want this. I want to make joy in my house." And then indeed, joy cannot be taken away. This is the meaning when we light the candles Friday night. The children stand about, and the mother brings in. This is symbolic of I bring all the simchas, all the joy of my family that I have had. Bring it close to me, and let the light up my home tonight. It was said that Sir Isaac Newton was asked, "How did you discover gravity?" And he answered, "By constantly thinking about it." Omar Rab Shimon ben Gamliel. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel, who lived in a cave for 30 years in fear of his life. When he finally emerged from the cave, this is the man who said, "How can one be happy in what he has? By probing and searching into his past and then his present, and see the difference between what you have had and what you have now." I don't think anyone, if he really feels he's miserable or he doesn't have much, think back to the day you were married. Think back to when you were courting your girl. Think back to the time before you indeed got the furniture you have. Asei beischo beisvad lechachamim. Make your house the house of wisdom. Rubeis simcha, v'achol lechmecha b'simcha. Then go, and you may eat your bread in joy in a house of joy. After having everything in the world, it was then that King Solomon wrote, vanity of vanity, all is vanity, if I don't have the joy to enjoy it. Let us overcome our obstacles and make the most of life now that we begin officially a labor for the year. Not by blinking facts or by burying your head in the sand, but by never giving up, by always believing in yourselves, by being rich with joy in your homes, rich with simcha in your hearts, rich with smiles on your faces. As you begin a year of labor, a year of earning, and to you the students, a year of labor of learning. Learn first what our Torah teaches us in this path of life. And I wish to end with a poem written by Anan, the man who never had to toil, who never had to win his share of sun and sky and light and air, never became a manly man, but lived and died as he began. Good timber does not grow in ease. The stronger the wind, the tougher the trees. The farther the sky, the greater length, the more the storm, the greater strength. By sun and cold, by rain and snows, in trees or man, good timber grows. May I wish all of you a year of mazel. And may the workings of your hands be a blessing to your hearts. Amen.
Shabbos Parshas Hazinu. Shabbos Tshuva Tuf Shin Lamed. This Shabbos is known as Shabbos Tshuva, the Shabbos of repentance. And how appropriate it is, my friends, that the Sedra we read today, the last song of Moses, begins with the words, Hazinu Hashamayim V'adabecha. Listen, O heavens, and I shall speak, V'sishma ha'oretz simrefi, and let the earth hear the words of my mouth. Moses brings witness, the heavens and the earth, to what man can accomplish, and conversely, what destruction he can bring upon himself. Just a few days ago, I've seen a program on television entitled Man and His Environment. And no better program have I ever seen that could have brought that truth so to fore to my very eyes. I've seen in that program where some live in the jungles as if they were still part of the animal world. They do not even clear the jungles to make homes for themselves, but where they live, under the trees, that's where they stay. We've seen in that program also whereby through hunger and deprivation, an entire society of people can lose the meaning of love and care. A group of people that once numbered 1,000 tribesmen, the wife can go fat and watch her husband starving and not even think of bringing food to him. There is no meaning and understanding of what it means to care for each other or for love. They have brought themselves into such a complete deprivation of feelings that a mother, as she takes care of her child, doesn't have love for that child. And at the age of 3, the mother chases the child from her to go fend for himself, either to eat or to die of starvation. And I've seen in the same program another group of people who for over hundreds of years have always been living with a fear and dread of death because of war with each other. whenever they feel like it. As they are in the fields, they are watching and having the sword on one side of their arms, the spear on the other, and plowing their fields, always watchful of maybe someone would come to kill them. Indeed, man can accomplish or can bring his own destruction. These days, my friends, between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are known as the 10 days of repentance, since there are 10 days, including Rosh Hashanah, until Yom Kippur, when the seal of life is put upon. And our sages say that in these 10 days you have every single day of the week. There is Sunday and Monday, of course, and every day of the week, and today the Sabbath. And it's symbolic that we should repent for that particular day of the week for all the wrong we have done that day. We repent for Sunday for all the wrongs done on every Sunday of the year, for Tuesday for all the wrongs done on Tuesdays, and so on, and for Thursdays for all the wrongs done on Thursdays. And certainly on Shabbos, there is quite a lot to repent for all the wrongs done on every Shabbos of the year. And at the same time do we ask God to forgive us. We ask Him also to give us blessings on Sunday for all the Sundays for the year to come, and on Monday for all the Mondays for the year to come, and so on. My dear friends, there was a story told of a father who heard that his daughter, being married and away in a different community, was being mistreated. And so he decided to go visit with her. But the son-in-law got wind of his visit, and so the son-in-law bought clothes for his daughter and jewelry for his wife, and put out a table of good food and made her look charming. And when the father came to visit, he was polite, and he saw Vashasiya Kados Einos, there was drink, as much without being forced as in the story of Esther in the Megillah. There is food aplenty, there is silverware on the table, there are beautiful clothing, and the home looks beautiful, and his daughter looks adorable. After he was through with his visit, as he was about ready to leave, he said to his daughter, "My daughter, I was told that you are being mistreated, but I don't see this to be true." And the daughter answered and said, "Father, what you see here is only because you are here. When you will leave, then who knows how things will return to." My dear friends, this is such a wonderful congregation, because the King has come, because we sat in judgment, because it's the high holiday season. Our Father is there at the time. And I ask the question, the tragic question of why. Why can't this spirit carry over? If you feel good inside by coming to synagogue, and you know that you are doing something that makes you happier, why not participate and share in this great spiritual adventure which we call Jewish living? And if I must be truthful, I would say, thank God, I think that in this synagogue, many of you do. But there is still a good part of our membership who I have the privilege to meet only when our Father visits with us. I am reminded of a story of 3 people that went to visit a doctor. One was Pat Mahoney, the other one Scott Fitzgerald, and a man, Izzy Weisberg. And they all went to the doctor, and the doctor, after examining them, told them they have a disease that, God forbid, but they only have 3 months to live. And as they came out, they all stood together, and Pat started to speak. He said, "For the last 3 months, I'm going to go to Ireland and see the old home." Scott said, "I'm going to Scotland, and I'm going to visit the old home." And Izzy said, "Pat, you could go to Ireland. Scott, you could go to Scotland. Me, I'm going to visit a specialist." And the same thing, my friends, Judaism and the synagogue is the specialist. It's the other doctor that you should visit all year round. Our Torah goes on. Tizal katalim rosi. Let my words come down as the rain or as the dew. And our sages say that the Torah is compared to rain. You can't see the benefits of rain soon as it comes down. In fact, you may see some disbenefit. You may feel wet, or you can see flood. But my friends, the benefit is there. After a while the grass comes up, the flowers start to bloom, the trees give forth of its fruit. My dear friends, our sisterhood is full of energetic ideas for this year. Their ideas are marvelous, ideas to bring culture and social work to you, as well as religion and education. You've all received the Brotherhood cards, and you have an idea of their enthusiasm to give their culture and social programs. And I will let this out of the bag. In our new building, we hope to have an art exhibit, a continuous art exhibit, chaired by Mr. Bill Stang and Jack Berkman. And please tell your friends, children and adults, anyone that has any art of a Jewish theme that they wish to have hanging on this exhibit, to please bring it to Mr. Bill Stang, and he will choose it and see that it's hung. In adult education, let me but give you a general outline of our plans. We hope to have, and now this is through the entire year, beginner's Hebrew reading, understanding our prayers, which every morning, which literally turns out to be every discussion also. Conversational Hebrew. We hope to have a film festival, the Jewish life cycle and law discussions. We hope to have lecture series of our rabbis of the Triad as well as university professors, advanced Yiddish and beginners Yiddish, a course in Bible for our USY and any adult who wishes to attend. We are going to have on Shabbos afternoon a course in Talmud, literally studying the Talmud. We want to have publicized to the community a course in understanding Judaism for our Christian friends, and also a course for us, a Jewish understanding of the crucifixion, which will entail the Talmud. Now, my friends, if you think that this is perhaps too much Christianity, it isn't. It must understand these things. It reminds me of the story of a nice Jewish man that was hurt in an accident. And as he was lying there, someone said, "Quickly, go call a priest." And the father came, bent over to him, and he said, "Do you believe in the Father and the Son and in the Holy Ghost?" And the man looked up and he says, "Look at him. I'm laying here and I'm dying, and he's asking me riddles." Now, my friends, the Beis HaMikdash of old, the temple of old, was not merely a place for service and sacrifice. It was in the Beis HaMikdash that the high court was placed. It was around the Beis HaMikdash that a lot of the cultural programs and the educational programs and indeed the social programs were taking place. There's where the offices for shidduchim, for marriage counseling and marriage making was, all around the Beis HaMikdash. And as then, so is it now. A synagogue in this day and age certainly cannot be and must not be and is not only a place to come and daven. It is a place for culture, for study, for social activities. It is a place to make our young feel their Judaism and to make our young be with Jews. And this is what we want our synagogue to be all year. But most of all, and this I cannot help but continuously emphasize, never feel as if you are a little peg in a great big wheel, forgotten and unneeded. As your rabbi, each and every one of you to me is an individual, a person. I am never too busy, and I want you never to feel that you are taking my time, whether you talk to me on the phone or in person. You are to me an individual that I am concerned with, and that certainly you must know your rabbi is concerned with. And to our synagogue, you are not a number, a name on a membership list. You alone are the whole synagogue, just as you are part of the synagogue. You are all of Judaism, just as you are part of Judaism. You are a whole world, just as you are part of this world. There are many, many pictures that one has in their home. Each one has a different shape, some of gold, some of silver, some of clay, and some of plain tin or copper or lead. But it is an old story that when someone takes these pitchers, every family that goes down to the well with their pitcher and a stream of water and to let it be filled, the pitchers are different, but the water is the same. The water of our synagogue and our lives and our world is large. Each one of you take part in it in your way. As you do, as you fill your pitcher and your life with this holiness of our Jewish faith, let it be taken to you any way you wish, in any shape. Any shape your pitcher carries it, but the water is the same. More than you needing us, all of us here need you. If I am not for myself, then who am I? But if I am only for myself, then what am I? If not now, when then? May God bless you all to have a good year, a year of simchas and of joy, a year whereby all the desires of your hearts shall be answered. Amen.
Shabbos, Erev Sukkot, Tav Shin Lamed. During the colorful month of Tishrei, every nuance of Jewish life finds expression. There are solemn days, as Rosh Hashanah, fast days, and there are also days of rejoicing. It is not coincidence that the first month of the year has samples of every shade and color of Jewish life, for these samples are intended as introduction and guidance for the entire year. By observing the special days of Tishrei in their proper spirit, we are initiated into a truly Jewish life, in accordance with the spirit of the Torah for the coming year. We find indeed what the Jew has and what the Jew is. There is time for solemnity, time for repentance and fasting, and according to Judaism, there is time for rejoicing. I wish tonight to explain and teach rather than preach, to give the various reasons our sages elaborated for this holiday and the symbolism involved with it. First, we must ask the question. We begin the year with a happy mood, with a festive atmosphere. Indeed, we are told, just don't go into the year, have a holiday, call it Sukkot. Why? One of our sages gives the reason, saying that man must feel he has won the case for life after the judgment days of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And since anyone who has won a case involving life, makes a party, is happy for it, we too must make a party and show happiness. Begin life knowing you have won and you have life before you. Make a holiday. And so we are commanded to make a holiday of Sukkot. Another sage says that simply the season came out this way. It is harvest time in Israel. And because it is harvest time, life comes first, before mysticism and before religious brooding. If you feel that you have now had a great experience of theological ecstasy in Yom Kippur, don't continue this with the rest of your days as the year goes into it until you perhaps fall away from it. But begin immediately with life, and begin life with harvest time. For even Yom Kippur is not to be considered as a tragic, fearful fast and holiday. In fact, it is something like a festive holiday in the ancient times. It was what we call a white fast. And service to God in Judaism should be with a sense of happiness and in a mood of joy. And so if you wish to begin the year with service to God, don't begin it with the remembrance of the awesome times of Yom Kippur. Begin it with a service to God, a remembrance of joy, with a service of Simcha. That is why Sukkot starts immediately. A first holiday, not 3 months later, but immediately. In fact, our sages have taught, as the words of the Psalms, Ivdu es Adonai b'simcha, worship God with joy. It is forbidden for an onan, that is one who has a death in the family, that very day he is to come to worship, is forbidden, because his heart is contrite and broken, and we must not worship God with a broken heart or a deep sense of personal sorrow. There is a third reason our sages give, and this is a psychological reason. True worship and faith in Judaism, true acceptance of God, is not by saying, I am afraid of God, is not by having the feeling of the awesomeness and greatness of God. For to worship God in Judaism is simply by saying thank you to God. Recognizing God by being thankful to Him is true faith, more so than by being fearful to Him. Our prayers are mostly prayers of thanks, not prayers of supplications, not prayers of forgiveness, not prayers for asking, but prayers saying, Baruch atah Adonai, blessed art thou, O Lord our God. They are blessing and prayers for thanksgiving. And this is our thanksgiving, our harvest time. So we begin the year with true recognition and worship of God. As Yom Kippur tells us, begin the year with God in your heart. How is this true recognition and worship of God? Should it be by having another day of prayer and a day of recognizing the awesomeness of God? No. By recognizing Him as God, as Judaism's philosophy teaches, by thanking Him, by having a festival to Him, by recognizing what He gives man, rather than by fear or by a contrite heart. And herein lies the genius of making even a mundane time of harvest work into some sort of sanctity. And not like the pagans of old. They too had agricultural feasts of pure and simple enjoyment that they brought in the crop. Judaism, the feast of the mundane workings of the crops, is to be a holiday of thanksgiving unto God who gave us this crop, unto God who has altered the cycles of time and taught the Jew that by worshiping God is by thanking Him. And now, my friends, I wish to explain the lulav and Esther. We're commanded in our Torah to take a pre-Eitz Hadar, a beautiful fruit, and a lulav and so on. What does all this mean? A lulav is a date palm that is unopened. And we have particular laws even of how the lulav should be. For instance, the tip must not be split. It does not just take any date palm. It must be closed and not old. Now the date is symbolic of something that has a smell, that has no taste, no smell, but does have a taste. In other words, the date palm has no smell, but it does give us a fruit, the date. We are also commanded to have aravos, or the willow branches. And this too has particular laws. And the last 3 leaves must be intact, as you see. This is something something that has no smell and no taste. There's no smell to it. To the willow, there is no food value to what grows with it or on it. And this is put together with hadassah, or the myrtle. The hadassah also have law. The leaves must be in threes, as you notice, just like shingles of a roof, one on top of each other. This, the hadassah, has no taste, there is no food value, neither does anything grow with it that has a food value, but it does have a smell. And last, we are commanded to take the estrog or the citron. And this also has a particular law. The law, for instance, that the pitum, the tip, must be there, and if we cut the pitum off, it is not kosher. In fact, there's old Bubba Mises that after the holiday, someone that is pregnant, if he would bite down on the pitum, then he would have whatever he desired. Invited to come and partake in this biting of the pitum. And the estrog is held in a certain way. It is held with the way it is grown. First, as a bracha is said, and then turned around with the pitum on top. Now the estrog too has a symbolism. It has a smell, a beautiful smell, and it also has a taste. It's a food that can be eaten. Both attributes. Now I ask the question, why was the estrog chosen? And so the Talmud tells us a beautiful answer. When God created the world, he said, let the fruit trees give froth and the fruits thereof. By this, he meant that the trees themselves should have the taste of the fruit. An apple tree, if you bite down on a twig, should have had the taste of the apple tree, of the apple itself. But the trees did not listen. So tells us our Medrash. And the trees came forth with the taste of wood, and its fruit, of course, has its own taste. If you bite a twig of an apple tree, it'll still taste like wood. The apple will taste like an apple. Except one tree did listen to the commandment of God, and that was the estrog tree. And indeed, if you would bite a twig or a piece of wood from an estrog tree or leaf from the estrog tree, it will have the same taste as the fruit of the estrog. Therefore was this chosen to be representative of that which has both taste and smell. Another reason is given because the estrog is the kind of a fruit with its cracks and rather instead of its smoothness that has the shape of the heart. Now why have all these all together? Our sages teach us that every one of these things are representative of nature. Everything in nature is different. Some have taste and smell. Some you may ask, why is it needed? Why is this spider needed? Why is this needed or that needed? Just like the Arabos, they have no smell and no taste. But it's God's word, and it is needed. There are many trees in the forest, all different in all different shapes, yet each one of them is a creation of God. And so our rabbis command us, take them and keep it all together in this festival of nature, in this festival of harvest, to represent to us that everything God has created has a need for it. The unneeded and the most needed, the taste and smell, the estrog, are put close to each other. That is, the arabos, which has no smell and no taste, is held next to the estrog, to show us again that this too is as precious to God as what mankind may think is most precious to mankind, that which has everything and needs it. Another reason given for these is because it is here to teach us at the time of festival of harvest, at the time when man produces his food, that there are sometimes things of nature that is compared to mankind. There are some men that have no taste, neither do they have a smell. These are some men wish not to come to synagogue, who haven't even got the smell of Judaism, who don't want to partake in at least the religious ceremonies of Judaism. Neither do they have a taste for what Judaism teaches. Kindness to each other, charity, correct weights, honesty, no taste and no smell. There are other Jews that have a beautiful smell. They come to synagogue all the time. They observe the precepts of our Torah that is in relation to man and God. But these Jews have no taste. They do not know how to produce the Judaism to each other, to mankind. The charity, the kindness, etc. There is smell, but on our tongue, no taste. And there are other Jews that have taste, but no smell. They're charitable. We are Jews at heart. We do everything our Torah tells us to do, or we think that Judaism wants us to do. We give charity. We are kind to people. Isn't this being a good Jew? Certainly it's being a good Jew. But there's another part to Judaism, and they have no smell. They don't enter a synagogue. We see them on Yom Kippur maybe for an hour and they disappear. The ritual of Judaism, the godliness of Judaism between man and God is forgotten. So da atam, yes, aber es nicht doch kein Reach, as we say in Yiddish. Schmeckt nicht kein Jiddischkeit. And there are other Jews who have both taste and smell. These are Jews that give tzedek justice do they pursue, charity do they give, kindness, love thy neighbor as thyself, this they do. And in fact, as we mentioned before, they truly thank God with bracha, and they truly show love to God. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God rather than fear the Lord thy God. And they also have smell. There's a nice re'ach. There's a beautiful smell from them. They come to synagogue. They worship their God. They say thank you to their God. Now what do? We take hold of this, the Esrog, which has both taste and smell, this Jew, and we put them close to that which has nothing, to tell us that before God, even the nothing Jew is precious. Don't run from him, because maybe a little of yours would rub off on him, and soon he will start having a smell and a taste. That's why we hold the Esrog not close to any other thing which gives anything, but to that which gives nothing. Some other sages say that the Esrog is symbolic of the heart, the lul of the spine, the hadassim, the eyes, and the aravos of the hands, to show us that everything is needed, all is here part to make harvest, or to make Judaism, or to make life in itself. Now I ask this question, why these particular items of this particular greenery? The answer is I don't know. Perhaps this was the type of greenery that existed in Israel, and this is what Moses chose, symbolic of these things. God is all around us, or to teach us that nature is all around us in godliness, and to teach us that all these kind of people are all around us. And God is above and below us, and all around us with them. Shabbos, Shmini Atzeres, Tov Shin Lamed. We come now to the conclusion of our festival, the last 2 days of Sukkot. And we then begin the year before us. In our Torah Yom Tovim, and the holidays mentioned in our Torah, this holiday of Sukkot will be the last one for 6 months, until the holiday of Pesach is upon us. In other words, my friends, a full half year of everyday living and toiling before the next festival.
And how do we end this Yom Tov that introduces us into the year? We end it by simchas, by rejoicing, like the happy rejoicing of flags and dancing and singing of Simchas Torah. Our sages and ancients have ended this holiday by the rejoicing of the ceremony of Simchas Beis HaShoeva, as we have read before, again with singing and merrymaking and dancing, and walking upon the altar as with water libation, pouring the water. But we also end it with solemnity. For tomorrow we will have the prayer of Geshem, the prayer for rain. In the traditional synagogues, this prayer is said with the singing and tune of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. For our sages tell us that as Rosh Hashanah God judges mankind, on this day of Shmini Atzeres, God judges how much rain is to fall and how wet the ground should be, that its grass and all the vegetables and all the wheat should give forth in blossom. And so it is a solemn moment and a solemn prayer. And the cantor wears white as did on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. It is a prayer of solemnity for a land that its very life depends on the amount of rain. We read it also with the solemnity of reading the book of Koheles, book of Ecclesiastes, vanity of vanity, all is vanity. And of course with the solemnity of Yizkor. It seems, my friends, that joy and sorrow, lightheartedness and the sincerity of life are all interwoven as an introduction to go forth into the year ahead. And in fact, not only in year and in season, but the Jewish life always was interwoven with lightheartedness and with sincerity. I am reminded of the story of a few women that were meeting. And one said to the other, listen, Sunday we'll go to the movies if we're alive. If not, we'll go Tuesday. What a story, even in illness, of the old father whose children brought him before a psychiatrist. And the father, whenever he came to the psychiatrist, would lay down and go to sleep on the couch. It was very comfortable. And this would go on day after day or week after week. Finally, the children called the father and said, listen, Pop, do you realize that the psychiatrist takes $50 an hour every time you go there? And to go there and just lay down and go to sleep, it's costing us a fortune. And the father says, $50 an hour? Oh boy, I didn't know that. Nevertheless, the next time the father comes to the psychiatrist, he lays down on the couch and the psychiatrist asks him, do you have any questions? He says, yes. Is it true that you get $50 an hour for every time I come here and lay down? And the psychiatrist said, yes. And he said, yes, I do have one question. What is it? He says, maybe you can use our park now. Now, my dear friends, let us see the deep beauty and inner warmth of this ending of a holiday and beginning of a year. We bench Geshem. We say a prayer for rain in Israel. The Jew, for thousands of years driven from the land, never surrendered its love for that land of Chalav Udvash, for that land of milk and honey. He prays for rain and dew when it's the season for it in Yisrael. He celebrates Arbor Day when things begin to grow in Yisrael. He celebrates Sukkot at the harvest time in Yisrael, Shavuos at the first fruits of Yisrael. Wherever he lived, he prayed, Levi, Levi, le'eretz Yisrael. My heart is yet in the land of Israel. And strange as it may seem, Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, would not blossom until the return of Am Yisrael, the people of Israel. It is important, my friends, to begin a year with this never-forgotten dream and prayer for the people of the book, who lived in ghettos and mud huts in caves and in fear, in poverty and in pain. And yet wherever they were, in whatever situation they were, whatever geographical clime they happened to inhabit, their hope and their prayer was the return of the land of Israel. We have plenty as we go on in life, but let the rain and dew, the harvest and crop, be abundant in the land of our people. It is a prayer of tradition, of continuance, of a chain of going on. And as the year goes on, we too must remember we come from a golden link of those before and before and before and before, whether it be in our person, in our psyche, in our spiritual endeavors, and even to our mundane life of the land of Israel. We say Yisker as we begin the year, as we end the festivities, to remember another important lesson. Ma chayenu, ma kochenu, ma yeshuasenu. What is our life? What is our strength? What is our hope? Kitelo we are as a fleeting shadow. Kahuach no shevers, as a wind that blows. But ato ushnosechalo yutamo. But you, O God, and your years, there is no end. We must begin this year with a lesson to recall what life is, and what we are in this picture of life. And a third solemn ceremony. We read Koheles, the book of vanities, the book of Ecclesiastes. Vanity of vanity, all is vanity. The wind blows, and the wind returns. And where she blew, that is where she returned. The sun rises, the sun sets, and again it rises in the east, to set once again in the west. I've had wealth and women and castles. All is vanity. For everything there is a time and a season. Better a good name than the best oil in the world. Better the day of death than a day of birth. Better visit a house of mourners than always sit in a house of joy. For in a house of mourners you feel their heart. If only in a house of joy you see their foolishness. The most important advice as you went to the grind of living, for old and young, look forward, for see the consequences of your deeds. Be prudent in your way. But let us begin the year, my friends, also as we end this festival with joy, with a feeling of simcha. It must be interwoven with light-heartedness. The ceremony of Beis HaShe'eva, spilling of the water upon the altar. There is a strange phenomenon about water, my friends. It is a commodity that is so abundant, a commodity that is so often taken for granted, and yet it is so vital for all life. The world began with water. As we read in our Bible, the Spirit of God was hovering upon the water. And we read, let the water separate from the heaven above and earth below, and then let water separate below, so we can see the dry land. And the earth was also destroyed in water by Noah's time. Evolution began with the creatures of water. Indeed, my friends, water is a plenty. It is cheap and plain, but nevertheless, it is life. Our Torah is compared to water, and so is man himself compared to water. This ceremony of water spilling at the very altar were not too long before was spilled the blood of sacrifices The offerings of mankind to God is symbolic of the importance of you, the individual. And as we rejoice in offering water to God, the commodity that one naturally feels to be plenty of and indicate that every molecule is important, we are sacrificing water. That's how precious water is. It could be used for sacrifice on an altar, where not too long ago the most precious animal that was bought with all your money and supervision was offered on. It's an indication that every molecule is important. In the symbol of offering of this water, so is it with man who may feel he is but a small drop in the ocean. In Judaism he is not, and every man is important, as is every drop of water. Our rabbis have taught us, when we read in our Bible, love thy neighbor as thyself, the most important, beautiful expression of is as thyself. Our sages have taught this to mean that it doesn't mean a lawyer to love a doctor or an accountant to love a rabbi. These things are simple. But let a lawyer truly love another lawyer, or another doctor, or even a rabbi sometimes with a rabbi, an accountant to another accountant. Love thy neighbor as thyself, one who is like you. He is where you really have to work yourself into really loving. And this is what our Torah wants. Only of God can it be said he acts as an elder in judgment and as a youthful warrior in time of battle. For mortal man, the man of action is rarely capable of patient study. The man in the ivory tower of intellect rarely comes forth into action. It is only, my friends, by pooling each other's talents and supplying each other's wants, by trading services and goods, that we attain civilization and culture. When every instrument in an orchestra strikes the correct note, even if one of the instruments is only the man with its cymbals, one bang and the whole thrill is over. But if it's a note that blends with the rest, the result of this symphonic orchestra is harmony. There is a poem that says it so beautifully. It seems my only talent is neither big nor rare, just to listen and encourage and to fill a vacant chair. But all the gifted people could not so brightly shine were it not for those who use a talent such as mine. My dear friends, as we begin the year, let us remember our love for our people and Israel, the tradition that carries on, the unbroken chain that kept us going in hope all these years and that must keep us going forever. Let us also remember the shortness of life and to make use of your days ahead and enjoyment and happiness that you and each of us in our own ways can rejoice in the knowledge that we are important, we are needed, we are creation of God, we are part of this world.
And very shortly we will again celebrate a holiday in which a special Jewish food will be. On Pesach, Passover, which will be in 4 weeks from tonight, and enthralled by the hues and the shadings that the master applied to the windows, in such a manner that the painting radiated movement and life at every point. The scene comes to mind as we begin the story of mankind in this week's Torah reading, as we behold the portraits of the biblical heroes painted in words. The people of Israel, my friends, were forbidden to draw portraits or sculpture images, and so they poured all their artistic talent into the writings. Indeed, the Torah is the greatest of all masterpieces of Jewish art. The author of the Bible, with the deft hand of a master artist, details the character of the biblical figures with such clarity and behavior that they truly live today. Now, my dear friends, while the settings have changed with the passing of time, human character remained the same. And so the portrayal of the growth and fall of the persons who occupied the world stage 4,000 years ago can throw light on the character of men today. If mankind is progressing, it is not by finding new truths, but by learning about the old ones. It is not by getting new problems, but the old problems happening to new people. It is not King Solomon who wrote, a generation comes and a generation goes. But there is nothing new under the sun. It is the same. The painting is the same. The character of the man is the same as today. He cried then as we do today. He laughed as we do today. He loved and he hated. Now, my friends, let us analyze the makeup of Noah, whose character is described in a few quick strokes of the literary brush. The Bible describes it simply. Noah is tzaddik haya b'davosav. Noah was a righteous man in his generation. Es Elohim hisalech Noah. Noah walked with God. What was his generation like, my friends? And the Torah goes on with this description. The generation or the land that Noah lived with. It was a corrupt society. Description of our Bible, filled with violence, with thievery, with oppression, with lawlessness, with hate. A generation of idolatry for the sake of joy, with murder for the sake of lust, wanton destruction, seeking of power for the sake of self-abasement. It was a generation of conquest, of colonization, even of this small cave-like tribe to the other cave-like tribes. It was this society, this kind of environment that Noah was born into. And think for a moment, all you who sit here tonight, is it much different in this society today that our bar mitzvah is walking into as a man? Yet in a generation as that, Noah had the courage to stand out as the one decent soul. He was the only moral man in an amoral world, the only tzaddik in a depraved society. And the confused standards of his community did not furnish an excuse for Noah to adopt false values. Instead, he challenged the day, and he walked with God. Nu is not good, as we say in Jewish. Wonderful. He was a righteous man in a terrible generation. And we learn a great lesson that a man could stand and be righteous even in a generation of Noah. But my friends, it is not that good. We open up the books of our sages, the Talmud, and Rabbi Yochanan comes along and throws an entire spear into this beautiful study. Rabbi Yochanan asks the question, why does the Bible have to use an expression? Could it not say, and Noah was a righteous man, he walked with God? Why must it say, and Noah was a righteous man in his generation, he walked with God? And he poses this question to his students. And each one thought about it until Rabbi Yochanan gave the answer. And he said, my dear students, it is to teach us that Noah was righteous in his age. Had he lived in the generation of Abraham, he would have gone unrecognized. Now what does Rabbi Yochanan mean? What does this scholar mean? Indeed, on what does he base this accusation? On a man that our own Torah testifies he was a tzaddik and that he walked with God. Where does he have a right to say, in the generation of Abraham, he would be nothing? But my dear friends, if we study the deep portrait, the true painting of the character of Noah, that we find the true Noah. And Rabbi Yochanan goes on and so beautifully explains to his students. Our scriptures recount what God said to Noah. God proclaims to Noah, "Hes kol basar barafonai." The end of all flesh has come before me. For the earth is filled with corruption and so on, as we mentioned before. Hineni mevi mavu mayim. Behold, he tells Noah, I shall bring a flood of water, Hashchis kol basar, to destroy, to take off from the earth every living creature. Even the earth itself is to be eroded. Even the trees itself is to fall from its roots. But Noah, Atah, you and your wife and your sons, because you are righteous, you will I save, and build yourself an ark. Now what did Noah do? What did he do when he heard of the fate that was about to behold his fellow man? Did he call out in pain for mankind? He did not utter a word of protest. Like Jonah in the story of the whale, when God told Jonah, go to Nineveh and tell them of their wickedness, he ran and was swallowed by the fish. So Noah, when he was told he would be saved, because God assured him that he and his family are safe, he said not a word to those of his generation. He did not turn to them and say, repent and look at your deeds. He did not say to them, how far can this lawlessness go? Can this butchery go on? True, my friends, Noah was more righteous than everyone else. He harmed no one. But on the other hand, neither did he do much good to anyone. He was selfish. Not selfish in the sense we understand. Not because he pursued his own safety. But he was selfish because he neglected his neighbor's safety. We all want to pursue our own. That's not being selfish. This is natural. But how about the others? He forgot the famous expression said to his grandfather, am I my brother's keeper, when God spoke to Cain? Indeed, we are our brother's keeper. He conducted his life in what I call, my friends, like the cafeteria style or cafeteria plan. In other words, self-service only. It reminds me of the story of an usher that was being interviewed. And the manager of the theater asked him in the interview, what will happen in case of fire? What would you do? And he said, don't worry, in case of fire, I'll be able to get out very quickly. He was only concerned for himself. But 10 generations later, Dor Abraham, the generation of Abraham, we see the father of the Jewish faith, the founder of Judaism, acts quite differently. When God tells Abraham that he is about to destroy the 2 wicked cities of Sodom and the city of Gomorrah, wicked cities, does Abraham turn? He faces God and he looks up to him and he argues with him. Hashofet kol adam, could you who judge the whole world, lo yaseh mishpat, you are not doing justice. Maybe there will be 50 righteous. How can you kill the righteous for the sake of the wicked? Maybe 40 and 30 and 10. If you recall your Bible, he goes down to 5. Please God, if there are 5 righteous people, let those who are wicked and deserve death, let them live because of these 5 righteous. And they know there was not even one. Abraham argues with God not for himself, but for the others. And this lesson of concern was taught as a pillar of Judaism. And I want the Bar Mitzvah to remember this. It is a pillar of the Jewish faith that we are concerned for others. Is not the Ethiopian as the same as sons of Judah, cried Amos? Does not our prophets cry, Hochiach tochiach es amisecho? Speak to the people of the world. If you find evil, correct it. If you find good, praise it. If what happens to the Jew anywhere in the world affects a Jew here in Greensboro, is it not our prophets who called long ago, woe unto the man who does not see to help even the burden of the animal who is overloaded, who does not come to take the load off a fellow, though he be his enemy. When your enemy falls, do not laugh or smile, but go and pray that he become your friend. Concern for others. And my friends, how beautifully the Medrash, the sages who taught us the wisdom, goes on and gives us a picture portrait of this man. Noah was in the ark for 40 days. What happens after 40 days? He sends out a raven, a black raven, and the raven returns. He waits 2 weeks longer, and he sends out a dove, the white dove, though we're not certain of the color. We'll call it a white dove. You know what our Medrash tells us? When Noah sent out the raven, we find the expression in our Bible, Vayishlach et ha'orev me'ito. He sent out the raven from him. And he said this was still a sign of selfishness of Noah. And the raven returned. 2 weeks later, when he sends out the dove, our Bible uses the expression, Vayishlach min ha'tevo. He sends the dove out from the ark with the consent of the animals and of the people that were there, his sons and their wives, with a concern for all of them. And then the dove flew and returned with an olive leaf, the symbol of tranquility and safety. Noah learned the lesson that although he was spared because of his sin list, the world could not be reestablished without concern for us. My friends, in the world we live in today, we need men who will not be content with what they do not do, but rather concern themselves with what they should do. The bee is not prized because it doesn't sting, but because it bears honey. A garden is not treasured because it lacks weeds, but because of its flowers. A rose bush is not judged by the lack of thorns, but because of the beauty of its roses. Man's worth is measured not only by what he omits, by his personal righteousness, whether it be in the realm of physical or business life, or in the realm of the spirit. You are not judged by saying, praise be God 100 times a day, but rather upon the worthwhile causes that man serves, by his concern that the kingdom of God be brought on earth for others. How our young men and women of this generation have grasped this truth in our day. They see it, and they protest for all to see it. This Wednesday we had the moratorium, a protest of young people who brought forth and led the elders to understand. Indeed, as Rabbi Eisendorf put it, go with them, be part of them. By so doing, we will join hands with those young people who refuse to yield to despair and who equally refuse to acquiesce in the endless continuation of a war which appalls their conscience. Perhaps the Messianic era is coming upon us. In his famous play, Look Back in Anger, the main character recites as he devours the world. He says there's no belief, no conviction, no enthusiasm. There aren't any good, great causes left. What a self-indictment of selfishness. Our prophets called it long ago. Woe to the man who says, I will go home, eat and drink, and peace will be upon my soul.
There are corners of darkness on this world, my friends, to be lighted, poverty to overcome, sickness to be mused, ignorance to be lifted, war to be ended. The rainbow of good and peace can still come forth. Be righteous in your own way and be concerned to others too. I end with a beautiful poem I came along that seems to tell the story. The poet writes, I sought my soul, and my soul eluded me. I sought my God, and my God I could not see. I sought my brother, and I found all three.